So, good afternoon, everyone. It's interesting to be here. I have, to an extent, a pretty good understanding of what kind of a value or expectations you might have. On the other hand, I don't necessarily have any proper clue of what your expectations might be. So what we will do, I'll introduce myself, explain a kind of a background that I thought I would present to you today. If you want me to delve into any other areas of the topic, please do so. I have no idea how technical you want me to be. That means thumbs up or thumbs down. Get less technical. Just give us some kind of a relief on this. Or then please add some level of technicalities should you be interested in it. If you really want to dig into something that is at the level of let's say, tough engineering, I always need to kind of isolate myself from PowerPoint. To me, it means written text in 2 columns with a long reference list in the end. That's kind of, for me, this is kind of hard reading. This is light reading. This is easy. That I can do quite simply, but if you want, we can also then dig into a level of tough engineering, technologies, and others. For most of you, I don't believe that's needed. For those who want to entertain themselves, I'll just put forward a couple of these documents, and then you can give it a shot. These are also available online, so for whoever wishes to have a look at them later on, they would be available. I come from a company called Fujitsu. This is not a presentation about Fujitsu, but in terms of technological merits, just some understandings that you know what gives us a perspective of talking about technologies. One of the most world's competed marketplaces of technologies is United States. One of the ways that the capabilities and a status is both created and secured in that marketplace is by applying patents. Fujitsu is the 13th largest company in the United States applying patents last year. Our kind of a portfolio covers over 100,000 of them. Both puts us into a position in terms of assets, but also puts us into a position that recently seems to be needed, which is security against any kind of views whether we are hurting somebody else's patents. Then we have cross-licensing schemes and others. We spend about $2.5 billion in a year on R&D. That's another number. That's quite a lot. We have laboratories. For me, research and development is separated. There's R. The R is the one that writes the documents that I put for circulation. D is the people who make development out of the outcomes of the research, doing, let's say, more typical engineering that you see. In the letter R, we have about 1,500 people working in Japan, China, Europe, and United States in places that we call Fujitsu laboratories. They actually create the very cause of many of our technologies. They have their own themes. We'll not touch upon them today, where we focus on. Today we will touch upon 2 different topics. First part, about what this industry is about. What are the characteristics and the kind of fundamental elements that I see if you would be interested in IT as an industry. So at least you know what the industry is about. It's not only just making software code, it's not just making electronical designs. But what makes the survival of a company pretty hard over here? And that's probably an area and an angle of view of IT industry that you have not heard of or will not hear about, because it's, at least in my perception, an angle that I've never seen been used. But it gives you a numerous views of what actually means IT industry. The second part is about the profound disruptive or rule-breaking changes that we see, where we will need engineers in the future, where we will need skill sets and competencies in the future. In both, just take a look at it from your own perspective. And when we are looking at engineers who have the ability to solve problems. So this could be the way that we seek them for. And if you kind of quickly get a hold of it, give us a call, and then you are kind of above the threshold and the ballpark that is needed. That's one way of kind of putting the limit. But please listen to this from the point of view whether there are interesting areas that you might seek after and what areas they actually are in the industry beyond the typical engineering that you might hear about. You are allowed to interrupt. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to give comments. Should it happen that I don't notice that you want to speak up, you can throw anything over here that weighs less than half a kilogram, and that will at least prompt me. If nothing else, it wakes me up. Or just wave your hand or speak above me. That's fully allowed. Use this as an opportunity to get more familiar about at least one potential area in terms of where you might be working in the future and what that kind of a career opportunities represent. Like I said, this is light reading. Therefore, some of the slides are more like giving you a perspective from the point of view that I want to deliver you as a message. In Africa, there's a proverb that says that every morning a gazelle wakes up. It knows that it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. And that's pretty much what IT industry is about, half of the story. You'll hear the rest of the story later on unless you know the proverb. Those of you who are mathematicians know that there are far more complicated maths behind that sentence that is explained here. You would need to take the quantities of gazelles and the quantities of lions, put them in order. I don't want to go there. It means that you need to run faster than the fastest lion or you will be killed. That is the essence of survival in the IT industry. We could grow and we little bit will touch upon these later on in the second part. Typically when we start talking about IT, and the easiest path to get something that you are familiar with is products. Products you know is PCs or something that you touch or carry with you, have on the table, work on a daily level. And over there are lots of buzzwords that we could pick up. There are hundreds of them and some that you are more familiar, but for me it's just an acronym city. I mean the population is high and the population changes quickly. Whatever kind of a list I would create is just a short course because it will be updated nearly hourly. There are lots of interesting technological piece parts in the IT industry that follow up. Once we really want to follow them up, you need to analyze them. This is just what you hear as a story. Once we begin to dig into them, we really need to do proper analysis of them. This is an analysis that is actually made around 2007 of the time when solid-state disk, which basically means NAND memory components, will overcome and take over the hard drives in our volume notebook products. It is predictable. It is predictable 5 years beforehand. If you absolutely know what is it that you are tracking, you follow that track, you have a historical trend data, you begin to look into what are the turning points, points of premium, points of infection, point of no return, you get there pretty easily. You can do that with the sizes of displays, you can do that with the speed of the wireless networks, and others. There's lots and lots of quite mathematical views of what is happening over here. This is one part. So should you be interested in kind of assessing what is going to happen in the marketplace in the future, in the IT kind of industry, we need people who are able to make predictions, but not just gut feelings. They need to really have a quantified views of what is going to happen. Weak signals, assessments of the past, analogs towards the past, and then give us a view where do you believe it might go in different kind of methods that are available to do technological monitoring and forecasting. So any of you that might be interested in that, that's clearly one area of the industry. This is what we play with a lot. Some of these are called laws. You know Moore's law. Moore's law, the kind of a doubling of the amount of chips in a processor, that's how it's typically explained, although the original one is slightly different dimension, but yet the result is the same. So some of them become laws as well. And in those, there's clearly an area where this industry is heavily driven with. And that kind of has, of course, because it's been driven with that, another part of the story. Imagine this. This is a kind of a view of what happens once this kind of economics of law are in place. You could look at the surplus of a component, the normal situation in the market where the supply and demand are in balance, and a shortage. We run through this every season, numerous times in a year, even on a daily basis. Situation is different this afternoon than it will be tomorrow morning. And that is something very tough in terms of predicting and making a living in this business. Why not every company survives? Some of my slides will not show you all the up-to-date information because of numerous NDA and other agreements. Sometimes I've taken a snapshot of where we are today. The laws behind are the same. This is a snapshot of something that we call NAND, which is a typical flash memory component technology underneath, flash spot prices of them. Daily low, daily high, from 3.6 to 6.6. When do you want to buy? That's within a day. You need components. You have a manufacturing plant, say in Estonia. You are running a volume product business, whatever that is, USB sticks or wherever you have these NAND memory components inside. Any of the gadgets you carry in your pocket contains those. And the more of them you have in TVs and other sets as well. It's a very typical component in many electronics. So how can you build up a logistical flow and an engineering level and even create a product if the kind of a balance of costs are on that level on a 24-hour basis? If you look at the longer term of that, you see what happens over here. And I'll give you an explanation of that a little bit later, so let's not focus on that chart. Instead, focus over there. If you want to build up new capacity, if you want to be in the capex part of the business as an investor, if you really want to be in the core of the electronics, then you need to be aware of what it means. The kind of investment to a new fab to really manufacture those is roughly $6 billion investment. Now, how do you recover your investments? There's a return of investment. On what? So it could be relatively unpredictable. That is why sometimes when you get into the Christmas season and lots of TV sets are sold, mobile phones are sold, other components go into the marketplace, you go to the shop, you want to buy the latest iPhone, you want to swap to the new tablet PC, you want to increase the size of your screens at your home, etc., etc. And sometimes prices go up. If there is a shortage, they go up quickly. That could skyrocket to 20 within 2 days, should that happen. So that's one of the reasons why this is pretty tough in terms of an industry to survive. The story is a few years back, just as a law for those that might be interested in kind of understanding from the IT industry what that means. So if there's a kind of a target to maintain the supply and the demand as a dynamics, but the price is kind of a move from $5 to $10 to $15 depending what the demand is. What if there's a surplus of a specific component? Well, what it means basically, the price, if there's a surplus, the price drops. So you don't earn $15 on it anymore, you earn $5 with that. And that means that you get lower margins and you are not making and earning the money that you predicted. What will we do? As the industry means, it means that the suppliers will reduce the supply. They move them to DRAM. It's the same fab. It's actually you're running a wafer fab. You can produce anything you want with that, nearly. So you move away from NAND production to DRAM production, a different marketplace, completely different kind of an electronics and components, to get your prices of your NAND back to $10, and most of the suppliers move away. Now, what does that mean back to the availability? That means that you need to predict what that is, and we might be in a situation where somebody makes a bet, do I want to put $6 billion into the industry or not? And if you really want to ramp up and make a replacement of disks in this world, you would probably need something like 125 billion. So now, go to your investor, say that I have a plan, I need a bit of money, and could make a commodity product available from as is from multiple suppliers in a similar level. We are so much in the area of commodities that we are both in the same spot market. In the spot market, I will make a recovery with my investments. I just don't know what the price is yet. So that's one part of the IT world, where actually the hardware components are put under pressure. Once they are put into a product, you hear a lot of these stories that, yeah, we get much more capacity and power, and your disk size grows up, and your CPU speeds skyrocket, etc., etc. Or you buy a new graphics component because you want to play some fancy game. I'm not interested in that kind of a prediction. What is the speed of a CPU in next half a year? I already showed you that it just will grow up. There's a linear, there's this law behind. You can extrapolate that as much as you want. You can make a bet. I make bet with champagne bottles and others. It's fun, but it doesn't help you to understand what you really need to focus then on. What's going to happen to those components that will be still manufactured with 20 years old fabs that are really old? How much does it cost us to put that projector into the network with an IP stack and a component to run IP protocol on it? If we take it from somewhere over here, those fabs want to just continue as a cash cow. They might be refurbished to a new technology, but that rarely happens that often. That might be something like $7 in terms of a component cost. So where can we embed these in terms of intelligent objects? Where can we put intelligence in? With the old-fashioned technologies where you are not looking the latest necessarily. And on the other hand, what can we innovate with the really latest generation that is there? State of the art. What kind of an applications will be running with those? And what this exponential gain will actually mean to us? When whatever fancy datasheet information or brochure information you might find, these are the ones that are kind of interesting. The laws in between apply. Yeah, they will multiply. But what's the utilization? Why do we need it? Where do we really need that? And that's something that in the second half we will touch upon. And that's the battle of portfolio development. Where do you want to put your kind of a focus on? What is your strategy? On what marketplaces do you want to be involved in? Shall we go into embedded devices? What does the embedded devices mean? What kind of technology should we have? What kind of competencies do we need? Do we want to go to the consumer electronics? Consumer electronics is more like over here. Completely different kind of a game, and the dynamics of the prices might be different as well. And once you have decided upon where you are, then of course this industry is full of new ideas. I mean, you have the 3D TVs at your home already. We have embedded Pico projectors on our notebooks. You might even find a digital TV, sorry, not digital TV, but a DV recorder that runs those embedded. We have the different kind of Kindles and other books, and we have the user interfaces, and we are moving into a lot of new stuff like printed electronics, rollable form factors, nice kind of screens that you can take out of your sleeves, immaterial displays. So it's not that we would be lack of ideas. The question is there really a proper business case behind? And whatever, I mean, the weirdest probably technology that we could describe to you along something like these are the audio papers. We have sufficient amount of information to read on a paper. What if the paper begins to talk to us? What happens to the wastebasket if we put these kind of audio papers over there and pile it up? Will somebody complain? Will that be a lot of decibels or not? We have created encrypted paper documents where some people are not able to read the contents of the written document and some others are. So there's lots of kind of new ideas, and that's one area. If you are capable of having proper ideas with some views of where that idea has a sweet spot of responding to a customer need, or even better, creating a new customer need, or having an ability to resolve a problem that somebody has, or making their life easier, then yes, the industry will listen to you. And that's another set of skills that in this industry are heavily needed. Those who don't have them will not basically last very long. Once you do have an idea, then you need to kind of play a game. I call it a startup propaganda. You need to learn a vocabulary that might be different from what you are used to today. You create a business plan, you begin to seek for investment for it. And yeah, you might, and watch out not putting the wrong words over there. If you put over there a word that is called core business, it will be read as obsolete product line. If you write over there that we are somewhat below the plan, it will be understood that yes, you are 75% shortfall. If you say to them that we have all the ingredients to certain kind of an aspect, it means that you might find a workable strategy at one day. This is an art. You go out, you have a time to make a pitch, you have 2 minutes, no slides, and the kind of investors are there, and this is your startup life. If you want to become an entrepreneur, that's a good way to test yourself. Can you explain your value proposition in 2 minutes so that somebody is interested in it? If you're not, good luck, maybe in 2 years. The chance won't happen that often. You can't knock the doors every week with a new trial. You can't polish your slides. There's no chance for it. You need to have a very solid kind of a view. And this is an area where we practice internally. A large organization, we are 175,000 people at Fujitsu. So just believe me, if we want to have a proposal even presented internally, the pitch needs to be good. The 2.5 billion is not spent just like that. There is a kind of a policy on how we actually invest money on it. In the industry, this is another updated one. Actually, it covers until the end of September the kind of a venture capitalist investments by industry in the United States. I just took it over here to show you that money is available, and lots of it, in different kind of industries. Not necessarily in IT, but IT-driven industries in many other kind of areas where IT plays a role. But the pitch needs to be good. If you want to specialize on that, it's really an area where the industry differentiates itself from many others. Once you have an idea, you need to understand that the technology doesn't create a marketplace. The CEO of Black & Decker once has said that people don't want drills, they want holes. And that's something that pinpoints very easily what actually you need to focus on. What is the real value proposition that you are looking into? There are no technical obsessions. You need to have a very clear attention to be driven. You might even learn from some successful stories of the past. And I'm not pinpointing any or showing or looking into towards any specific brand name over here, but just look at the Regent radio. That was, I think that was somewhere in the 50s when it was launched. And you might recall something more modern in terms of a design, plays music, has something that rotates, costs less than $100 roughly, comes in different colors. Did they do the research well? Or is it just coincidental that something like that was before and kind of exists 10 years ago nearly, or 8 years ago, or something in terms of a software design? I rarely see engineers who do their work as well as over here, understanding exactly the behavior of a human person and our mentality. You need to deliver experiences, kind of which is an extension to any product services. And that's why the technologies alone, I don't believe they create the marketplaces. We have lots and lots of product people coming over, knocking our doors, saying that I have a brilliant idea of a new product. Worst thing they can do is ask me to sign an NDA before they present the idea to me. I throw them away immediately. No questions asked, not interested what was the idea that they were after. NDA means close the door, not listen to. For many legal reasons behind, because we don't know what the idea was about. we don't know whether we have something similar in the works already, and we don't want to have the hassle of battling that later on either. But often they come with a product idea, and that is not enough. It needs to be far more. And that's something that in this industry, you see a lot of companies failing because of this. Great product looking for a problem to solve. And if you have, or sometimes even not the product, but a solution. So you have a solution, but there's no problem for it. And these kind of techniques exist a lot everywhere. But if you are able to kind of come up with the market understanding that adds value like that, this industry has really nice kind of opportunities for you. If you are more in analytical world, an area where we really need a lot of support is analysis of cost structures and the different kind of financials that actually play the game. These are claimed to be the actual numbers, but like I said, wouldn't take over here the latest ones, not to get myself into a problem. But you can look at the different kind of ways that you can needs to be analyzed. This over here, in terms of a distribution of a value of something that you might assimilate yourselves with as knowing what it is, and the cross margins of those, who gets what, how much is paid for the channel and others, and a prediction of a certain type of product later on, that is an embarrassingly high profit. Now, what happened ever since, once that hit the marketplace, with that kind of a level of profitability? The cost structures were very well designed into the product. It is not accidental. The whole kind of a chain complexity of the design was focused on delivering certain kind of level. It's not a wonder that at the moment that same brand captures nearly all the profit of the industry of mobile phones. You can look at the unit volumes of different other kind of numbers, but look at the kind of shares of who actually earns the bottom line. And that's fully dominated. Don't know the exact number today, what it would be, but I would easily claim it to be between 80 and 90% of the worldwide profit goes to one single brand. That's domination. But you can't get there unless you have a cost structures designed properly. So you can look at it from the technical point of view here. The issues behind this industry is that those components come from multitudes of vendors. The supply chain behind for each of the component is very complicated. It's not like airplanes. I mean, Boeing has in their airplanes maybe, I don't know, 6 million components. It's not quite that much. But you can bet that there are several hundreds of components even in a small different kind of a gadget like that. And we need people who understand supply chains and logistics. This is IT industry as much as engineering. And some of these kind of journeys of a component, this is the wafer, could be the non-component, located somewhere, following transportation, going into wafer processing in another location, moved across the world for circuit packaging, then moved back for testing, and then moved into distribution. Okay, is there anyone over here that is somewhat kind of ever heard of the story about sustainability or environmental factors? And then look at the kind of trips around the world that small chips in your pocket have traveled, and you are just kind of daydreaming of having the ability to go south for vacation. And the chips inside your pocket have traveled across the world a couple of times already before you are able to even get a hold of them in the shop. No, I don't need to tell you that this doesn't make sense. It costs. Some sort of lunatic behavior of the industry and lots of optimization capabilities and opportunities still. If you are more in the chemical parts of the world, we need people who understand this as well. There are hundreds and hundreds of chemical compounds included in specifically in the kind of electronic components that are kind of intensive from material point of view. And we don't know where and how and where they end up in the end, in a similar manner. So if you have these component structures over here, you have the cost structure behind, they need to sort out the logistics somehow. Again, IT industry, not what you read as from the newspaper as an advertisement, that product with that price or something like that, or a software that you can license with a given price. This is as much of IT industry as any other kind of factors that you typically look into. Now, let's just presume that you have got to that far. We need people that are good in finance to really understand how to create value inside of that kind of a global value chain. This is a real example of a product launched in 2007, a mobile phone, and similarly, it had components built up all over the world and from different kind of vendors doing small piece parts of that. How can they, a product, not designed in country A, not developed in country A, not manufactured in country A, not sold in country A, still generates 40% of its profit into country A?
That's Nokia.
That happens to an N95 mobile phone, yes. So, since none of these operations actually truly happened over there, how come they capture when manufacturing assembly as that is in China and the goods are sold in the United States? And now you can look into the press and the kind of normal debates, also the corporations in Estonia. Does it matter where the HQ is? You bet it does. There's a proof point of it. It just shows where you can accumulate your profit on a need basis. But that's not an easy logistics. That's a financial kind of a logistics. Another art of the IT world. And you hear that when you read the press. Company A, B, C, whoever pays, what, 2% of taxes in the whole Europe. Might make 60–70% of profit in terms of bottom line compared to revenue, but still only 2% of taxes paid. There's something behind that they do well over here. And that kind of a design, you don't read about those typically. Now, if you are more outspoken person and you want to really do the kind of a front-end part of the world, meet customers, sell, you don't need to be here to learn what you are being told to on a daily basis. You can go back 5–7 years and listen to what you were taught in the elementary school. And, excuse me, sales, not all the salesmen still get it. I mean, if you have a product with, and just give it a shot, how many of you quickly can understand that this is really so? You're selling a good, something, at a 12% gross margin. And then this friend comes over there and says, well, actually, you do deliver it in-house, so I don't need to pick it up from over there. Yes, okay. So I don't pay it with a credit card, I pay it with cash. Can I get a little bit of a discount? And in the end, those sum up by 4%. How much more does the salesman need to generate in terms of volume to earn the same amount of money? 50%. 4% discount, and your budget just was increased by 50% in terms of units, in terms of volumes. Now, often when I present this, even in front of sales organizations, I get a lot of calculators picked up from the pocket and debate later on that this mathematics is not correct. Unfortunately, it is. It's painful. Give them a 10% discount and you need to increase your volume by 500%. Now, that's a high margin in terms of many consumer electronics. Cut that by half and recalculate that, and then you hear the story of IT industry. This is a volume business, economies of scale. You need to add value or you need to have a high volume. Otherwise, these numbers don't match up. And if you want to play in the customer front of it, that really means tough time over there in terms of what the volume translates to in terms of the annual targets given for those people. And also the reason why that kind of a situation means that there are lots of parts of the industry that are in lovely red ocean. I don't know if you know the book Blue Ocean Strategy. I recommend you to read it. It gives you a perspective of how to do things completely differently. If you're an entrepreneur, I recommend it. But in this world, much of this is basically in red ocean. Yeah, differentiation. Well, take the labels away from a notebook and let me guess what the brand name is. I'm not certain I would guess every time correctly if you give me 5 different brand names. For a normal consumer, mission impossible. Life cycles. Every time the 40-foot container hits the harbor in Amsterdam, to empty it to a local distribution center, to be distributed to resellers across the Europe, another container leaves from Asia with the next generation of the same product. And this goes on all the time throughout the year. That means a little bit challenges in product lifecycle management and also in terms of how quickly you need to re-innovate. And that's why also the R&D often is aligned to repeat the history. To do something a little bit different, make a little bit tweaks and changes, radical differentiation is very rare because small differentiation, it doesn't deliver really returns. Yeah, we can twist the bend a little bit, we can move one part over here. How much would you pay for if there was another USB port over there and doesn't have it today? Doesn't really pay that much of an attention in the end. So this is really a island where kind of a red oceans need to be avoided. Our revenues today, our fiscal begins in the 1st of April. Let's take the product part of the business and just the European scope or some area of the world that can be understood. For whatever revenues we will generate from the 1st of April next year until the end of the 31st of March the following year, we have about, at the moment, roughly 50% of the goods developed. 50% doesn't exist yet. We still need to develop or innovate them. We still need to develop them. So we have a portfolio that has a very quick turnover. Service business is completely different, but in the volume product business, that's the name of the game. That's why those containers, when they leave the Asia, they are already carrying a new kind of a generation within them. Now, where do these kind of radical ideas come from? Depends where the real competencies exist. We cannot build up a proper business on skill sets that don't have kind of a networking capabilities and economies of scale in terms of having a sufficient amount of competencies around. So the world has structured, even in the IT world, into alliances. Ecosystems is the modern way of saying it. Networks was the old way of explaining it. And you don't do DVDs or the core components of those in more than one place. You don't play around with LCD displays unless you are part of a cluster and do a proportional part of your development over there. If you want to work on digital film processing, pick up your location in the world. If you want to work with voice over IP, you need to understand where actually that core component comes from. If you want to be in gene diagnostics, another place. Inkjet printing, another place. Mobile communication, yeah. Now we begin to find Scandinavia over there as well. And then some parts in Russia as well. Pattern recognition. Now, you can compete. You can believe that you can create an organic LED display capability and start to compete, and you have a great idea. And I made that idea because I was kind of let's say you go over there for United States, West Coast, Silicon Valley, and you have a great idea of that product and nobody listens to you. Because the world for that exists somewhere else. Another part of the IT industry that not necessarily always is brought up in discussions when a product is presented to you with a price. Also, something for you to be aware of. If you are really keen on a certain area of expertise, subject matter expert, deeply in a given area of a field of engineering or technologies or others, you are being kind of put into the dependencies of how the IT industry works, where those skill sets are required, who is interested in them. It's not necessarily that everything can be done everywhere. We have automotive kind of industry has structured itself in a similar manner. Airline industry, exactly in a similar manner. They have their own locations, clusters. And those kind of clusters play the big role. So these are the kind of vital conditions as kind of a summary that I see from the IT industry. The fundamental conditions that any vendor needs to somewhat be good at. Capital assets, cash flow. Well, you remember the 6 billion investment and the kind of prices that could be $3 or $6 and you don't really know what it will be tomorrow. That's not necessarily, you wouldn't sell apples on the open market over here in the town if you wouldn't know whether the prices will be 3 or 6 tomorrow morning. You wouldn't go over there, you wouldn't tolerate that, you would seek for another job. But IT industry is like that. Marketing activities, how do you raise awareness? That you really get kind of understood in the marketplace and you understand what the market actually requires. How do you distribute? That logistical chain is really kind of tough. Turnover, that as well. And we control that heavily. That's somewhere where you can't keep goods in the stock for too long. I mean, take an example of a normal electronic component that has a price erosion of 5% per quarter. Do you really want to buy them today and keep them there until January? Because then you pay too much. And if your margins are single digit, that's gone. So you rather buy them between Christmas and December for January and make as quick rotation as possible. But then you better get them, because if you run out of supply, you need to buy from the spot market and the prices could skyrocket. Logistics, therefore, and product development. Maybe the message is over here. I put the product development last. That's not necessarily vital. That we can outsource. That's not, from the industrial point of view, crucial. iPhone, designed in California, United States, manufactured in China. They focus on the core competencies and value attributes of that marketplace. It's not necessarily the development of the gear to put it together. That can be done somewhere else. So I would put that as a secondary concern in the end. This industry happens to talk about it typically first. And that's why I put it to get the message through over there. Now, from your point of view, what's your competence? Let's say that you are 1 in a million expert. That basically says, in the population of Estonia, that it's you, no one else in this country has the same rare capabilities and skills. Well, that to me means that there's only 950 in India with 10% of the costs available to me to hire. That's just economics, that's mathematics, you need to be aware of it. You need to be good. Do go to those lessons, don't skip them. Another perspective, 1% of the population in China with the highest IQ, just 1% of China with the highest IQ is 10 times the population of Estonia. Yeah, it's going to be tough. There are no free lunches. Again, do go to listen to what is being taught to you over here on a daily basis. Make good grades. That's one way. China produces about 52% of the science and engineering grads at the moment. They also need about 70% of worldwide science and engineering grads at the moment, though, so there's a demand side that I'm not going to talk about over here. How quickly the world moves. This is maybe 2 years old number. A foreign-owned R&D lab is opened in China in every 43 hours. We've done that a couple of times, so it's relative. Do you think it's not that often? But it means that lots and lots of focus is put into Asia. That's what it means. It also means that we believe that they are not good. You take Carnegie Mellon, they make an assessment of the highest quality certified software design labs in the world, and 50% of them come from India. I didn't know that before I read it. I felt that they are the kind of offshoring sites that do the project work on behalf of others. Now 50% of the highest certified kind of a software designs come from India. So it's a simple translation in the end. You need to focus in the areas where you are very good. And in terms of engineering, that luckily means that that's not the only position there exists. All these kind of different parts in the IT industry that I mentioned are reflected over here. This is actually our picture in terms of our group locally over here in Finland and Estonia. It's not only the development people that we need. We need finance people, we need HR people, marketing, production. Project management is a big one. Purchasing, quality, sales, specialists. Then you can see, it's not that many specialists that you really need. The rest is actually far more larger. We need people in the service delivery side, and that is spread into some area where IT engineering then does exist. So of course in the service delivery part we have engineering skill sets to really kind of make system integration on behalf of the customer or support them with their skill sets. And they are really engineering parts. They are different people for the customer service operations and project management and others. So there's a level of engineering over there, but there's lots of other opportunities as well. In the end of the day, once you learn your kind of area, you pick up the industry, there are lots of different opportunities within that. We have engineers in all those positions. Always. Because they have what it takes in any of those positions in the end of the day. And that's kind of an encouragement from your point of view. Yeah.
You're looking for these people or?
No, this is as is situation currently.
Okay.
The spread of the kind of skills that we are looking for, where they are. So I don't believe that the pie chart changes that much. I mean, the ratio between them are pretty, unless we make a strategic move and want to do something completely different. In our current established business, that's how it is set up. And that is roughly how you might find that. That's not untypical for an IT industry in the Nordics. This is how it looks like. And there's lots of engineering level capability, but they are close to engineering capabilities in the IT industry as well, where ability to understand the engineering part helps in project management. Similarly, it helps in supply chain. It helps in many other areas because that's the way the industry works. When I meet teachers, and I sometimes talk to them about what kind of people do we need in the future, I phrase the question that would you hire kids to work? Your own kids. Would you hire them? Because this is what we are interested in. Skills. You will all become knowledge workers, regardless of what you want. That's what you will be. Do you know what knowledge worker? That's something I think that was one of the Nobel Prize winner economists in the 50s, in the end of it, when that was kind of picked up as a name. You need to know how to ask questions. You can't even imagine the amount of people that come to meet us and say that they have an answer. We are not interested in those people because we get too many answers. We get answers from our employees, we get answers from customers, we get answers from competition, we get answers from the marketplace, we get answers from our technological vendor companies, from our partners. We don't have people enough who make the right type of a question. Learn to make questions. Big data. How many of you have read about big data in some magazine? There's a huge amount of data and analytical parts. The good way to interpret data, whether a company is able to survive with big data, is to ask that if you were given a book that covers all the answers in the world that you could ever imagine, and you go to the board of directors of that company and say that over here, I guarantee, is the answer. You are given one perpetual right. To phrase a question that changes this kind of capabilities and success of your company. One question only. What is that question? 90% of the managerial level will fail. They will ask something that is transactional, operational, something that they pick up from the sales statistics and can extrapolate that or whatever. Doesn't change. The ability to ask questions for us is important. In engineering, in customer service, in system integration, in sales, in marketing, everywhere we are. Right type of questions is critical. Ability to influence others is critical. Whether you want to sell your idea inside of a company or sell it to outside, or influence the design of a IT architecture or enterprise architecture changes of a company, you need to be able to influence them. Have flexibility. You will have about 15 different jobs before you retire. So yeah, you can make a career bet now, but believe me, that will change in the end of the day. Curiosity, imagination, your kind of something that spontaneously comes into your mind, that memory is too short. You need to be learning constantly, every day, something new. Whatever this industry did 5 years ago, beyond the logistical parts and other parts, but in the engineering level part, it's all history. And you need to therefore basically manage astronomical amount of information. 2 years old information I have in my hard drive is deleted automatically. It is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. And I'm about to change that to 12 months. Because anything that has been written 12 months ago, from my point of view, it's getting irrelevant. It's a middle-aged information. You find that as well. I mean, you don't go to the library to seek for information, you Google it. You seek for the latest possible information there is, wherever that comes from. You need to have initiatives. You need to be really kind of proactive. We are not looking for people who make it 5 times out of 5. We are more interested in people who make it 8 times out of 10. Because that yields more. That's 8 in the bottom line. That's 5 in the bottom line. You don't need to be correct every time, but you need to yield. And then you need to have ability to deliver a message in 60 seconds. The tolerance of listening is weak. I read emails, lots of them, on a daily basis. First 5 lines. And then I have a beeper. When I really begin to hack my email and I want to get the amount of emails down, there's a beeper. The beep goes up every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds, when the beep goes up, I press delete. If the mail didn't deliver by that time, the message that was there, it will be deleted. That's just the way the companies work. So this is the kind of a nature of the IT industry. The first part of the proverb from Africa, meaning that you needed to run fast. That was a long pitch about IT as an industry. You have a lot of opportunities depending on your position and interest. And this is not only engineering. The laws of the industry create opportunities in multiple different kind of job positions. To the other part of that proverb. So the first one was that the gazelle wakes up, it needs to run faster than the lion or it will be killed. Well, the lion wakes up, it needs to outrun the slowest gazelle or it will starve to death. So we go to the other part of the story. You need to be quick. It doesn't matter whether you are small or whether you are big, whether you are fast or you are slow. When the sun comes up, you better be running. Now, how do we run? Where do we see that actually the world is changing? And I think I will pick up a number of areas where we currently see that there are changes ongoing. Areas where you might not necessarily see lots of discussions happening. There are layers of those, but I think I will come to those on a descriptional manner once we get into the specific techniques. There's one kind of way of explaining to people why and what if basic assumptions no longer hold true, because that, at least to your ages of people over here in this room, works pretty well. First, because it wakes you up by me asking you soon to raise your hand. How many of you have an account in Google Mail, Hotmail, Twitter, or Facebook? Exactly. I knew that. Now, how many of you don't pay a penny? Don't pay a penny of using all those services and capabilities that have been given to you. How many of you recognize that you are not the customer of those services? How many of you recognize that you are the product being sold? So since you are not paying for it, you are not the customer, you make the product, you are the one that is being sold. You are the one that help Facebook to earn money. You make the product that they make money on. The more you live in the Facebook, the more you make that product that makes them money. And that is just a way of kind of a proof point in what if the assumptions no longer hold true. How much this industry has actually changed. It's not about having something next generation that is a little bit better, gooder looking, and cheaper than before. It's really profoundly changed. Most of the people that listen to that understand it, but then not necessarily had captured before that the world had changed that much already. And I'm not going to dig into the elements of privacy and other parts of what that actually means in terms of yourselves, what kind of a contextual rights you have already licensed, the pictures that you put over there you no longer own, the rights that you have given for somebody to sell them, even to me if I want to buy them. So the nice picture from your last summer vacation with your friends that you posted somewhere, I can buy them. It's no longer your property. That's one part of the changes. But let's look at the areas where we are, from the development point of view, interested in. And that's basically more typical engineering. It could be any of the parts of wherever you find the buzzwords today in terms of location data or stock market kind of a work or logistical world. But let's put the first big one over here. We are keen on, and that could be one cluster area, and lots of embedded solutions are needed, components, different skill sets, the techniques that today, out of the fact that end users are not the only users of IT anymore. The physical world is the front end. That enables new type of solutions that we haven't had before by allowing us to create solutions where we create real-time awareness of the real world. Something that is out there, but it is not a person. Make the world talk to us. Make the physical world talk to us. And as a proof point of that, here's an example of what has been trialed to run a traffic control systems in a large city. You don't go with the TomTom navigator to Tokyo. Give it a shot. You get a map from over here to there, and then when you start, it says there's a little bit jam over here. Do you want to reroute? Well, on the first 3 minutes, it reroutes you 200 times because it gets constant messages about traffic jam somewhere, changing and another jam, and a changes, and a roadblock, and a change. And in the end, won't work. What happens is that you have cameras, you have sensors in the road, off the road, millipede wave radar systems, others, probe designs and sensors in taxis, so we can actually understand in the real time the complete movement of the city. Based on that, we need mathematical algorithms to optimize the throughput of the city. We don't necessarily optimize the throughput of that nice looking car throughout the city, because we are not interested in that individual, we are interested in the flow. How can we improve the flow? What does it mean for our traffic lights control systems, signaling systems? What does it mean for our public transportation routes? What does it mean for the location of shopping centers? What does it mean for the locations where electrical vehicles will be charged in the future? What does it mean for location of taxi stations, etc.? We pick up weather information to that. We lay all that information together and we post that. We have even places where we have microphones listening close to the schools, the noise of, say, small children coming out of the class, moving to the park across the street, and because we hear the noise of the children, we can warn the traffic around it that there are children walking nearby. Please slow down. That is traffic control. That is a kind of a technology change that we are seeing that creates a huge new type of job opportunities, technological requirements, capabilities we can't even imagine yet. It's on the very early stages still of us understanding the real world. But the population of the sensors will be extremely high. There will be billions of those. The other area where we are extremely interested in is, of course, the ability to kind of create services across the world, economies of scale. But that's more traditional. Maybe we move something that you might assimilate yourself more easily. This is really high-tech, something that is not easy to even understand where it might go. Helping us to circumvent any time-consuming, just mundane activities, adapting technology to our world. I'm not talking about multi-touch. I'm not talking about surface displays or something like that, or even any kind of a mobile device that you could carry with you. Here's an example of a robot, socially interactive teddy bear that we have developed. A trial. It's not a commercial kind of a generically available goods yet, but on a huge field trial level. It recognizes roughly 300 different emotions and doings of a human being. It has ears, it has eyes, it can smell, it can talk, it can communicate, it can store information. It is hooked to the healthcare centers, and it can be remotely connected from over there. Now, I'll give you a application field example of that, where that would be needed. The population in Europe is not getting much younger. Unfortunately, we are getting old. How do we take care of the people that are getting old? How do we take care of people who have Alzheimer? What is the last thing that an Alzheimer patient might remember, trust upon? To check whether the patient has taken the right type of a medicine at the right type, whether the person wakes up in a normal regulated pattern of an hour in the morning, or whether it takes an hour too long, whether it needs to recognize if something is wrong and needs to be contacted through the healthcare center to make sure that the patients could live at home instead of being institutionalized. What kind of a teddy bear would you develop? What kind of an applications and services and business models would you construct around it? What if it is an elementary school toy, not an Alzheimer patient? What kind of a teddy bear would you carry in your school rucksack? And you can begin to imagine that the opportunities over here are enormous. This is purely based on how can you innovate further out of the first trials that are only being shown as of now. And we are not certain yet where that will go. But we are certain that this kind of interactive, embedded, very close to the human person operating objects with some intelligence within them will be there. Healthcare is a clear area where they will be needed, but in our normal daily life, you will begin to find pillows. You will begin to find furnitures where different kind of capabilities can be embedded. The applications are all different. That's an area where we see profound changes. We see a lot of changes in the area where people want to dig into the data, which is kind of the economics has called it to be as valuable as capital or human resources to an organization. Ability to really use data in ways that haven't been there before. And we've kind of created the enabling technologies for that, like a supercomputer. Now, 10 petaflops. I don't know how many of you easily can digest what 10 petaflops actually means. Well, let's put it this way. You hire mathematicians. And if I hire mathematicians let's say 100 million of them, 100 million mathematicians working for me, and each of those mathematicians makes one calculation every second of their working day. They are on a contract for 15 years. And every working day, they make one mathematical calculation per second, every 100 million of them. That does it in 1 second. That gives you the perspective, the speed of the systems that may be generated today. And that's just kind of on a long-term curve, because they are going to be around 1 exaflops by the end of the decade, far faster than they are today. Now, what do you do with that amount of calculation capabilities, the area where we need to innovate? We can simulate heartbeats. With 600 cells, you're going to pretty much begin to simulate a single heartbeat and begin to see the conditions of a person after them being diagnosed by a doctor. You can predict the weather on a much more precise level, not on an area level, but more local level. You can look at the crash simulations and lots of other areas where engineering type of a development work will be needed. And this is only in the kind of early pass of it. Worldwide, there's a competition in this field. Who will crack the fastest machines next? And what fields of applications they will be put on? China is playing a game, Japan is playing a game, United States is playing a game. They all are betting for the next bigger machine, because this actually accumulates research on numerous different kind of fields, from medical world to the normal sciences, to the industries, and the capabilities created around supercomputers that kill it. And this is the machine over here that I refer to, built by us. How many cores do you believe that it has? You know the number of cores, and in the press you can read that your latest PC has 4 cores in it. Some of you know what the core is, the CPU engine that makes actual calculations. So number of cores, how many cores is in this system? 705,024. I'll give you another number, just to give you a glimpse of what it does mean to be a big computer. How much electricity does it consume? So do I plug it in over here? Nope. I would need to dig a little bit copper from the local power station over here first before I can feed it in, because it's about 12 megawatts. A single computer. So believe me, they do run on... Sorry?
Including freezing?
Including, yes, everything, cooling as well. But the complete operation, 12 megawatts. So believe me, they do run on electricity. Don't leave them on if you don't really need them. Same is with your machines at your home. But this is the application field. This is really one clear area of technical engineering where new applications are created. Different kind of a coordination with smart objects, where we embed intelligence into various fields in the world. This is aircraft parts. You have different components in the airplane that needs to be checked. And believe me, the supply chain of these, checking those components, whether the last date is proper, whether somebody has kicked the seal broken from a life vest that is under the seat and it needs to be replaced, and the plane happens to be in Argentina and it's a plane from the British Airways, and they need to use the local spare parts on it, and they don't know who is the person making that change. Are they approved? Is the spare part approved? And whole rotation over the decade that the plane is running across the world means that you might be sitting in the airport on a gate. The plane is there, but you are not let in. So, gate, plane is there, no passengers there inside anymore. It should depart and nothing is happening, and you are getting angry. Am I going to be late? Some of you might have experienced that, and it's nervous. But they have their own regulations. They need to make these checks. And kind of having the ability to simply run through the whole plane and carry a device that says that please change the life vest on seat 17C gives capabilities to optimize it. Maybe we cut off 5 minutes of the ground time. What does 5 minutes in ground time mean for that kind of a line of a business? That's billions. So small piece parts of that. That's only an airplane. And those of you who are interested in understanding more of the complexities of real world, that plane takes off say in Helsinki, flies to the southern parts of or somewhere in let's say leisure flights, and goes on holiday to Canarian Islands. That's roughly maybe 6-hour flight time. Now think about your disks at home, hard drives. How much information does that plane generate during a single 6-hour flight? That needs to be read, checked, analyzed, processed. It is 274 terabytes. So you need to buy a little bit more disks at home to just contain a single flight information over there. And that needs to be processed in real time. Most of it is processed in real time, very little is actually saved. But how do we optimize complete industries to behave completely differently than they are behaving today? That is clearly an area where opportunities exist. An area where we believe lots of opportunities exist is that because you are interacting with the outside world, you don't follow the typical rules of behavior and security even anymore. You don't believe in hierarchy in a similar manner as the traditional employees in an organization might feel and older people might feel. But you also face in certain issues in terms of your privacy. I mentioned that earlier, that there's clearly an area where we believe that new technologies will be needed. We want to enable people to remain anonymous when needed. So not everything you put somewhere can be read. We can anonymize that with data masking technology. That's just one way of doing it. But we need more ways. We need the capabilities to maintain our privacy. You don't even know how much of your privacy is gone by today. How many times have you logged into a new service where, because of being able to deliver you a better service and kind of inform you of certain goods or services and elements that you might be interested in without relieving your personality, could you please tell me whether you are male or female? Yeah, cross. And the date of your birth so that we can send you a greeting card at the right time. Yes, mark, date, month, year. And just to give you some local advertisement, what is your zip code? What did that just mean? I know exactly who you are. I do not need to know anything more. Zip code, your sex, your date of birth, and you are done. Before you even click I accept, the personality, individuality, identity of the person sitting above the keyboard has been tracked. That's something where in terms of privacy we are today. Once you go to a shop, you use a loyalty card, you make your payments. None of these trials have been done in Estonia, so you can be in peace. But they've been done somewhere in the world. You use your loyalty cards a lot, and they know exactly throughout the years what is it that you buy. How can that information be used, and why privacy will become an issue? Should you be a woman, and you would happen to be pregnant, you don't need to tell us. Around the 10th, latest on the 12th week, we know it. It's as simple as that. Just by analyzing your behavior and your shopping history. That's it. Done. Now, you can predict a lot of other areas where information from a person can be digged. And you understand that this is going to be a huge industry in terms of how do we help people to retain their privacy. There could be millions of other kind of areas where technological developments are ongoing. Social working, how do we read information from Twitter feeds and elsewhere? How do we understand the sentimentality of the world? Let's say that there's a car manufacturer that has some issues in their brakes and the first crashes in the world have happened. Did they react quickly enough or not? We have customers who want to understand how quickly do they really need to react. Or another type of a analysis based on the same. Compared to weather forecasting, just simply reading Twitter feeds in a larger than perhaps Tallinn type of a city, but say in cities like Amsterdam, or specifically London because it's already big enough, but where you have sufficient amount of tweets. What can you do with Twitter in terms of health and epidemics? We can predict the spread of flu roughly 9 days before within the city by simply reading Twitter feeds. Because all the information is there. People begin to post that. We follow a certain type of a pattern. When the pattern and the certain signals begin to increase, that's where we get the kind of a predictor. And the probability of the prognosis is higher than the weather forecast that you get for 3 days. And we get it 9 days before. Now, there's lots of other areas where that can be used. Different kind of risks in the society and elsewhere. We need people who can create algorithms, who really know how to crack and create mathematical solutions, intelligence, analytics. And this is probably one of the fields in the technical world where we will lack most resources over the next 5 years. Analytical capabilities. So should we have that manager staff over there that has the ability to ask the right type of a question, we need technical skills to interpret that in terms of mathematics. We have lots of opportunities in exploiting crowdsourcing. We have lots of opportunities in improving mobility and creating different kind of ease of use in mobile world as well. But I think we kind of gave you a proper view of the capabilities as well. So what was the kind of a key takeaways of today? Lots of new services are being created. The real world, the different kind of smart objects, the cloud computing phenomena of economies of scale of this kind of IT, which is kind of an industrialization of the IT services itself. Different kind of gadgets, privacy, and we could continue, and there are lots of kind of new services and capabilities being built, driven often by a number of certain kind of forces that together reinforce each other. And those changes are big. Now, you can innovate them. You can help us to come up with new kind of solutions. You can work with us on any of the fields needed in our company to help us to crack that kind of a world to our clients. And we need really kind of many different kind of special skills. There are lots of job opportunities in different kind of functions. If engineering is the one you want to do, there's lots to be done. If engineering is something that you are interested in, but not certain whether you want to work on that for 40 years to go, then you can take something that is close to engineering, working in an engineering company, but in a different role. And those opportunities are really, really huge. And that's basically the second part of the African proverb. What we need to do to make sure that we don't starve, even though we would be 172,000 people in our organization today. So we are not the smallest one, but we need to re-innovate ourselves constantly. Not much of what we need in 5 years exists here today. And that needs to be innovated, developed, tested in the marketplace, and then taken into the market. And we need help on that. Any comments, feedback from the second part of the set? Because this is now basically your opportunity to get and phrase your questions. From the first part or the second part, either way. I mean, that's up to, I have the answer over there already. Some of you might pick up and understand what that means. I'm not going to explain it. I just don't know whether you have a question. So, or whether you are starving for beer or going online because you hadn't updated your status over the last 2 hours. So some of you have, not all of you have. So those who haven't are kind of desperate in getting on both the keyboard or the touch screen. 35% of people with an account in the Facebook. And there's a study that claims this and makes me nervous. Check the Facebook friend status still once after they have said goodnight to their spouse. And do not nod your head. Maybe in the end, all I want to say is do go to the lectures. Don't skip them. You don't want to be a statistical number in the end of the list that I mentioned, because then it's too bad. Be good. Behave well. Thank you.